Thanks very much. I've actually written these remarks so I can sound more clever and come in under time. Um, So I'm from Canada. Less said about the current state of affairs between the U.S. and Canada at the moment, the better for the benefit of my blood pressure. But suffice to say, we're treating it as a wake-up call up here, not only for the mobility of goods, but for the portability of qualifications and skills across Canada and into other countries around the world. I actually wear several professional hats in the field of recognition. I'm mostly wearing my open recognition advocate hat today to help expand your notions of recognition and its relationship with skills and digital credentials. It's from working with ePortfolios since 2004, with open badges since 2011. Today's few slides are going to sketch in some points that I and others have been making over the years and suggest some directions for the future. So if we can move on to the first slide. I think we can all agree that Mozilla Open Badges caused a major disruption in credentialing in 2011, with badges as flexible digital containers for opening up the recognition of people and their achievements across a life-wide spectrum, from formal education to informal experience. I might tweak this a bit today, actually, for example, to mention more kinds of learning, including work-based learning that I was mentioning in the comments. And our working group here is about making transferability part less manual, more robust. But this well-known napkin sketch is still a pretty useful overview of a very inclusive recognition system. But maintaining that spirit of simple, inclusive recognition has been a challenge, as we'll see in the next couple of slides. Mozilla made it clear that learning is not only lifelong, it's also life-wide, and most useful learning happens in the wild, outside the classroom. Informal, usually unstructured, sometimes working with others, sometimes by ourselves. As we work, we get things done and strive to reach our goals. These examples slot into a well-known reference model for a workplace performance called 70-20-10. Some people like to quibble about the exact percentages, but most of us agree about the basic premise. Education and training is only a small part of the learning we need to be able to perform effectively. Open badges were a very simple, flexible way to capture life-wide learning and make it portable. Trouble is, if we go to the next slide, they were also a very convenient glossy container to repackage Con Ed courses relabeled as industry-relevant micro-credentials, which seldom go beyond course delivery. Sometimes they're just self-paced online courses at that, usually with little attention paid to the application of learning to workplace performance. Some exceptions do apply, and some of those people are here today. These micro-credentials add fragmentation to the mix. They increase the complexity, as we're going to see in the next slide. Things can get pretty big and complex pretty fast. I'm grateful to Wendy Palmer and Margot Griffith from Australia for the useful term, the messy middle, where most of the interactions happen. And not all mess is bad. It's actually very human. But let's remember the stakeholders involved in all of this and the key questions they have as they navigate this complexity. Not only the learners and the employers, but also the educators, the trainers, funders, policymakers who want to do right by the system. I'm sorry for making your heads explode. I'm going to show you a simpler version in the next slide. I originally proposed this in a UN webinar hosted by the ILO back in 2023, and I framed things from those same 4 stakeholder perspectives. Learners need to build skills, but also to connect with others, to have rewarding lives and careers. Employers need to build the skills of the workers, but also to grow and change themselves as organizations. Educators need to show how they're developing resilient lifelong learners and fostering the relevant skills that learners and employers need. And governments and funders need tools to inform their policies and programs for the public good. We've been hearing about that today. These stakeholders have diverse needs and goals in a larger ecosystem. On the one side, you have many stories of human potential. On the other, you have multiple performance goals at scale. The trick is to find ways to properly match these needs and potentialities and have a positive impact. We are getting there, and yes, linked data and AI can help a lot for scale, but we need to keep all these very human perspectives in balance if we want good results. I'm sharing one of the methods we're using at Learning Agents to manage recognition as we watch the ecosystem evolve in the next slide. We've developed a framework to help people get started with flexible recognition based on our work over the years. First, the formal, non-formal spectrum, split with the presence and absence of summative assessment down the middle. That's the border of rigor, so-called, for these generic types of badges. Here are some examples within the categories, although some can actually straddle that border. And they can be stacked in various ways according to the different contexts. We provide this framework. It's a guide for appropriate metadata for the different kinds of badges, i.e. the content of the badge. It's very adaptable. It's certainly not the only one out there. One EdTech's Trust Ed framework, for example, is another one. Royal Society of Arts has another one. No matter what your template, it's all about the transparency, to be clear about what you're claiming and make sure you support your claim with appropriate metadata. And obviously good linked data standards can help with that, and that's why we're here. So I've been using these slides to frame some of the suggestions I've been making in our task group Padlet, and I'll feature those on the next slide. The ones on the left are more about learner rights. The ones on the right speak to transferability with an emphasis on being open to recognizing non-formal and informal learning. And I would emphasize in both directions. Professional bodies could also be even industry bodies with well-developed competency frameworks, such as the International SOPHIA framework for IT, and post-secondary institutions may well want to have, and many of them do, have their programs pre-assessed and recognized by these bodies to really demonstrate industry relevance. With that, we can go to the final slide. I'm part of a community that's been exploring how to open up recognition for over 20 years. EPIC has been having a moment over the last few years as a result of doubling down on the notion of recognition itself as a way of connecting humans across silos, communities, borders. We launched the Paris Declaration on the Equality of Recognition last year at EPIC 2024. At the 2025 conference this October, we're going to be working on how to articulate recognition across the spectrum of formality and up and down the scale of volume. We also have an exciting session lined up for day 3, which is an open challenge for open recognition. This challenge is based on the crisis in Bajistan. It's a fictional country that's facing a major economic disruption caused by a unilateral broad-based imposition of tariffs from a major trading partner. Bajistan is looking for solutions for national skills mobilization, calling on all the stakeholders to respond. It's essentially like a recognition Shark Tank, but maybe think about that kinder, gentler great white shark in Finding Nemo, because it's appreciative. So there will be a jury to evaluate, but the audience will also take part, and everybody's contribution will be recognized. I think we just managed to lure Christy Wold McCormick to come to Paris to see this. So lots happening in Paris in October that relates to making recognition more inclusive, more portable. We'd love to see you there, but regardless, I hope you found these slides useful. Thanks.